How you feeling, man?
I feel good. I feel good. Feel light,
Yeah.
crisp, fresh, and tired at the same time.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've done a couple of these now.
Mm-hmm.
Probably first one was a couple months ago, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And you're literally a different physical being than 65, 90 days ago. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I'm on my GLP journey,
Yep.
which is not a secret. A lot of people hide it. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
And it really bothers me. I just turned 41 today.
Today.
Today, 41 years old.
I feel like a terrible friend.
No,
Happy
no,
birthday.
no.
I love you.
I love you more.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. No, not at all. As we age, the physical gets much harder. Hormone imbalances, cortisol, and that's okay. And sometimes just dieting and exercising is just not enough.
Yep.
We're all built a little bit differently. And so it's okay to need help. Just like, mental health, it's okay to not be okay and look for help. And so I share with people, that's what I'm doing to encourage them. Now, as you're training me. I'm working out 5 days a week.
Yep.
I'm really watching the diet as well. But I need a little bit of a jump start. Metabolically, this has helped big time because what it's done is put me in a position to help, control that insulin, which is like the big key.
Sure.
And so with diet and exercise and being followed by a physician, I'm down almost 38 pounds in 2 months.
Wow.
38 pounds is a lot of weight.
Right.
So I feel literally light.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of mental clarity,
Yep.
especially because all the food noise is being blocked. And again, that's a big physical thing. It's really easy to say to someone, have self-control. Why can't you have more self-control?
Sure.
And it's just not always that.
Yep. I mean, so 38 pounds down, you're doing the work, right? As they say, the training, the diet. What have you learned about you along the way?
I really like food. I said this to someone before. It's not really socially acceptable to have a drink at 10:30 on a Tuesday morning. Although some people do it.
Yep.
It's not socially acceptable to just be drunk all day. It's very socially acceptable to be full all day. Wherever I am in the world, when I'm traveling in an airport or with the kid, if I'm stressed and I want to eat, I can pick up food anywhere.
Right.
I can have a meal. I can eat something. I can satiate that craving. And it's like he's having a bite to eat.
Sure.
So I've learned that, now to go a little bit deeper, it's not that I just like food. It's easier to give into my impulses. And so that has made me more aware because even now I can still technically eat whatever I want, but I am more careful because I really want to maximize the efficiency of this medication for myself.
Sure.
It could take me 3 years to reach my goal weight, or it could take me 7 months.
Yeah.
And so it has made me aware of that self-control factor a little bit more.
Impulse is interesting to me. Has that had any transference effect
Absolutely.
beyond food?
Absolutely. In general, it's fascinating. I'm sure more studies are going to come out about this. And I know this is not our topic for today, but
Oh, this is great. This is good stuff.
it turns down the volume of impulse generally. We're physical beings,
Yeah.
right? Everything, temptation, lust,
Right.
desire, it's as much in the body as it is in the mind.
Right.
And when I'm tired or weary, sad or happy, it's easy to just feed the body. Anything. It's much harder to drink alcohol in this. For the same reason. I'm fuller. I don't like the taste. I'm kind of like, eh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it has made me aware of that,
Sure.
which is a good thing.
I'm curious, does the awareness or has the awareness come because of the results, or was the awareness like spurred off the jump?
I think it's probably results based
Yeah.
more than anything.
Yeah.
You see the results, you're losing weight,
Right.
you make a correlation, and you're like, if only it was that simple. There's still a lot, because there's a lot of people on it who are not having the same results.
Sure.
You can stay, you could be on it and not make any lifestyle changes, and you're going to have significantly inferior results.
Right. Right.
And so it's kind of like anything else, it's a tool.
Yeah. Well, nonetheless, I'm proud of you, man.
Thank you.
It's been cool to see you
Thank you.
stick with it. I think that's the key principles. Like, you tried some stuff in the beginning. You were attempting the diet, working out a lot. And you keep using that phrase, what is it? Take the edge off or jumpstart, something along those lines. And from the outside perspective, I've witnessed that in you. It was like, dude, he's trying. It's not like he's just not doing anything, but GLP enters scene, and it was just boom. It was just like, it gave you that lift. And just really proud of you.
Thank you.
Really proud of you.
Thank you.
So Alfred Adler, he was kind of one of the three, I guess, godfathers of psychology in the West, including Freud and Jung.
You love talking about this guy.
Yeah. He kind of veered off from Freudian stuff, but nonetheless, he had some good things to kind of consider and reflect upon. So he introduced the concept of feeling inferior versus the inferiority complex. So I think this applies really good to kind of Western mental development, because we're a really driven society. It's what's allowed us to make such progress, so on and so forth. So feelings of inferiority, he defines as, or it can be productive. So you kind of identify your limitations and you say, I need to get better at X or Y, or more skilled at Y in order to be better. On the backside of that, he says inferiority complex takes that same curiosity or ambition, but that person gets overwhelmed and freezes and doesn't do anything towards their goal. First off, personally, how does that land with you personally? And how does that fold into your role as a CEO with the people you lead, manage, mentor, etc.? So feelings of inferiority can be productive if leveraged properly.
Sure.
Inferiority complex is when someone gets overwhelmed by the grandiosity of trying to do something with their life and just freezes.
The way I would explain it, and as I've experienced it in my own life as a husband, as a father, as a business owner, as a CEO, is it's okay to feel inferior. It's actually okay to feel anything, right? It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel sad,
Yeah.
right? I'm moving into that phase of my life finally, for lack of better words, like enlightenment. All these things I didn't understand 10 years ago, I kind of understand now through experience and therapy. And so it's okay to feel inferior, because you can ask the question why and address it. You don't have to live in your feelings. Not every feeling is truth. It might be subjectively true, but that doesn't mean it's objectively true, right? And so it's okay to have a feeling of inferiority. I think the problem with an inferiority complex is everything becomes about my feeling inferior. And as that relates to human interaction, as it relates to performance projects, completion, it's one thing to feel inferior. It's one thing to be absorbed by the fact I am inferior and therefore I must overcompensate, whatever. And so, it's difficult to answer that question, but I think kind of that's where I'm living right now, is just understanding the differences between two very similar things, but not.
Sure. At 41, does this model land differently than when you were 31?
Yeah, for all the reasons I just said.
Yeah.
It's like I can feel inferior, but I could very quickly separate myself and say, no, you know what? That's not true. Or it is true because of this, but it's not all encompassing. You know, if I step on a basketball court with LeBron James, I'm going to feel inferior. Period. The end. That's okay. That's okay to feel inferior next to one of the greatest basketball players of all time.
Sure.
Any other feeling would be kind of weird or insane, probably.
Yeah.
To have an inferiority complex would really affect any interaction I would have with him.
Sure.
It would affect everything else. Whereas if we're just playing ball and I feel inferior, yeah, I should feel inferior. You know, it's an ant next to a gorilla, an elephant, you know, a lion. I'm talking about a very silly example, but just playing basketball.
Yeah.
But if I have an inferiority complex, that is going to affect maybe how I interact with him, how I speak with him.
Right.
Because where an inferiority complex will affect is maybe my idea that because I'm inferior to him at basketball, my worth is somehow much less.
I was going to venture down that path of like,
Let's go.
there seems to be an invitation to talk about like identity, self-worth, self-esteem in regards to these two. What I'm hearing you say is like, it's okay to feel inferior, but that can be a passing state or emotion or feeling decoupled from me as a person.
The feeling of inferiority has nothing to do with who you are.
Sure.
They're totally separate things.
The latter, the inferiority complex, sounds like, or I would assume, is I feel inferior, therefore I'm a shitty person, or I'm like just
Not worthy.
garbage.
Sure.
I mean, when we say this, it sounds very linear and logical. Why do we mix it up?
Well, there's a lot of reasons, man. Family of origin, trauma, abuse. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why someone would feel, if you're told that you're nothing for 20 years, you're going to just believe what you've been told.
Yeah.
If you're told that you're something amazing and incredible, even too much, you're going to believe what you're told.
Sure.
To the detriment of recognizing your limitations and faults and weaknesses. And so, I mean, there's a lot of reasons. But I think it's important for anyone out there who needs to hear something like this to understand that if you feel inferior for a reason, that may or may not be true, but it has nothing to do with your self-worth or how superior you are in many other regards.
Sure.
Some of which you don't even know yet.
So I think her name is Julie Garner. She's like she consults Fortune 500 companies. I think she's a psychologist. But have you seen the show Billions?
No, I've heard of it.
There's a lady in that show, and she compares herself to that. But nonetheless, her quote is this: "Your reputation enters the room long before you do. And often the deal is already done before negotiations start based on your reputation." What's your take on that off the jump?
Truer words have never been spoken. That is legitimate. In business, more than anything, your reputation is invaluable. Your reputation is priceless. You cannot put a price on it. And it can serve you in really tough times. It can help push you in really good times. It's tough when your reputation takes a hit for reasons out of your control. For example, a company's ability to meet its obligations doesn't really have anything to do with the reputation of the owner or the CEO. And so you fall behind on bills, and next thing you know, people start talking. Your reputation starts to get tarnished. Unfortunately, people will only hear the most recent negative thing and forget all the positive. And so it is not impossible to come back from it, but it is hard. Reputation is something that I think any good business leader puts a lot of stock into. But like anything else, for the reasons I just mentioned, like sometimes things happen and it's out of, nothing is in a vacuum, right? And so generally speaking, I think we shouldn't get too hung up on the value of a reputation. It's there. It's really important. But things are going to happen. And so more than anything, it's like behind the reputation, what most people will talk about is a leader's intentions, a leader's heart, a leader's character. If I fall behind on a bill, for example, and I can't pay it, it might hurt my reputation with new vendors, but all the old ones, they know my character. And I think character is way more important than reputation. And I don't think the two are the same. I think reputation is more of a track record.
Sure.
Generally.
Outcome based, maybe?
Sure.
A little bit?
Sure. Character is like an all the time thing.
Yeah.
Character is when you're up, when you're down, this is how this person is.
Sure. Sure.
Genuine, always having high integrity, is different than someone who just wins. And again, a reputation for being a winner or a savage, not necessarily a good thing either. But with regards to that quote, your reputation does precede you. I think it's way more important than a track record. I think it's all about character.
So I was listening to you talk. A couple things came to mind. One, it feels and seems like reputation is a lagging indicator of like small repeated things or actions, words over a period of time, and then a reputation is born. But that also means, I think, that it can be like, it's like trust. It can be cut off with one action, one word. How do you go about repairing reputation?
That's tough. Unfortunately, time and more track record.
Yeah.
Eventually that can be repaired. And that's why I think it's so much more important to focus on the character component. It's much more difficult to repair bad character than a good character slump.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
For us as people and business owners to always just try to do the right thing, no matter who's watching or what's going on, to just have a character that's intertwined with high integrity. Again, we're going in circles here, but just always doing the right thing.
Sure.
I think is far more important than reputation.
I think a lot of people will either listen or watch that and agree as a line item. What I'm curious about is we see leaders who are, I'm going to use this phrase carefully, but like narcissistic assholes that are winning to some degree. How does one reconcile, like, okay, I'm seeing people win who are going against what I think is wise or skillful? You think you just ignore that and kind of just travel your path? Or do you kind of butt up against that and say, okay, I'm going to overthrow that type of leadership?
It's hard. Look, there's a lot of people winning out there doing it the wrong way. And there's a lot of people with excellent track records of winning that do questionable things. And it's not my job to judge that because I'm not perfect. I've made many mistakes. But, one of the base definitions of a narcissist is someone who just does not care about the feelings of others, right? I believe, you're the psychologist, but I believe there's 9 different checklist items to define a narcissist. And I'm not by no means trying to diagnose anyone, but that's the big one. You know, just a general lack of feeling for how their actions affect others.
Sure.
I'm not saying that anyone should do this, but if you go down to the checklist for narcissism and you do the complete opposite, I think that's the way to do it. So with regards to that one, always care about the feelings of others. Whether you can do something to avoid it or not is a different story, but always have a deep concern for how your actions will affect others.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like baseline leadership 101.
Yeah.
And so in a world that's, you know, intertwined with fintech and technology and finance, and there's a lot of narcissistic leadership.
Sure.
And that is terrible leadership. It is absolutely on its way out. It's been for many years now, I think, because companies and people are recognizing that the bottom line is not the only line.
Yeah.
Super important because we don't enter into businesses and ventures to become nonprofit organizations.
Sure.
But the bottom line is not the only line. And so I have seen, me personally, many narcissistic types rise to the top. I mean, by definition, that's what they do.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult to sustain that. I think it's difficult for the environment, the organization around them to absorb that for a sustained period of time.
I was listening to a conversation with Jordan Peterson and Keith Campbell, both psychologists. One's professor. Jordan's like media guy now, but they use the term narcissistic disagreeable extrovert versus an infantile independent or infantile dependent man. And so where they were going with this was like, if you had to choose based on just getting ahead, the narcissistic disagreeable extrovert is better, but it shouldn't be the aim.
I would agree with that. And I love Jordan Peterson, by the way. He is brilliant. I don't think I've heard him say anything that I've disagreed with. Unless I'm misconstruing what you just said, I might disagree with that because I don't think it should even be an option. And that's why it might be the way to go, but it's definitely not the aim.
Yeah.
I think generally narcissistic behavior as a leader just hurts way more than it helps. And so you don't want to be infantile and dependent,
Right.
right? You want to be mature and independent. And aware,
Yeah.
emotionally aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me think about one of his other lines. I'm going to paraphrase, perhaps butcher it, but you'll get the gist. It's like, learn how to be a monster first and then learn how to control it later. I think the premise is like, you never pull on that lever of like just going all in and becoming that savage or that warrior, and whatever that looks like for you personally. If you don't taste that at least once, are you leaving something on the table?
Look, that's really hard to become a monster and then reel it in. And it's because at what point, is that monster out of control?
Sure.
I mean, that monster at work can turn into abusive behavior at home. Which is really hard.
Yeah.
The opposite of that is just as bad because it's really hard to
basically hide and not bloom. I don't know what the phrase is, but I know what you're saying. I just don't have the language.
It's difficult to get to that point and then reel it in, because then sometimes it's out of control. You're just going to have to go on blind faith that you can reel that monster in. And so I think what I've learned, what I would tell my younger self is, don't be afraid to ask for what you're worth. Don't be afraid to push for performance. Don't be afraid to hold people highly accountable, but stop short of not hurting people's feelings.
Intentionally.
Sure. And again, it's a balance.
Yeah.
But just that it's that character perspective.
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to have, I can offend someone just by waking up. Matter of fact, most days I've already offended 30 people before I've seen or spoken to them. So it's really difficult to control hurting other people's feelings.
Sure.
But you want to take that into consideration.
Right.
Regardless. And I think society in general is really, really sensitive these days.
Mm-hmm.
And almost anything offends everybody.
Sure.
That's a whole other problem of its own. We could talk about that later. I'm sure we have tons of these lined up. So, but from the perspective of trying to get something accomplished, trying to get an outcome, trying to reach a goal,
mm-hmm.
and the best and fastest, most aggressive way to get there, execute while preserving character.
That sounds wise.
Do what you have to do, ethically, legally, morally.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of indicators that will tell you what you're doing is not right. You can push and push and push and push and push and work your fingers to the bone and hustle, hustle, hustle. I'm all about that.
Yep.
And you will offend some people on the way, and that's fine. You can't control that, but never intentionally try to hurt someone. It's kind of simple, actually.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy.
That's a good line. I love that.
You can spend the rest of your life not intentionally trying to hurt someone.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think a lot of people know what that is by experiencing it too.
sure.
I mean, you can probably find that sentiment in a lot of wisdom books and churches, temples, like do no harm. That's like the first rule, right?
Sure.
But when people feel that from a group or a person or even a nation, it's like, oh.
No, I
get
can unintentionally do harm all day.
Yeah.
We're not perfect, but you can live your entire life not trying to intentionally harm anyone. I mean, this is like basic decency.
What does that say about us as a people at large when something as fundamental and basic as that seems so far off in a lot of ways?
We're broken, and we're trying to find our way back. We can always be doing a better job.
Yeah.
But if you look at the world, no, we're not. We're not. No one's actually saying to themselves, I'm going to get my point across today and not intentionally hurt somebody.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, more often than not, it's damn intentionally. I'm actually trying to intentionally hurt.
Sure.
Trying to win at all costs.
Yeah.
And I don't care what that human cost is, what collateral. But we need to get away from that.
Yeah. I want to toss up directional accuracy versus pursuit of perfection with you. So I'm going to read a little tidbit and then you can kind of reflect on it. Directional accuracy refers to the ability to set a clear course and adjust strategies as new information becomes available, helping you focus on long-term goals while remaining adaptable. So compare that to the pursuit of perfection. You can kind of guess at what that means, but it's like trying to get all your T's and I's dotted before you take any action. What does directional accuracy mean for you as a CEO? And on the backside, directional accuracy for you as a friend, father, husband?
Yeah, I love that concept. Directional accuracy is just understanding what the goal is and trying to get there. Putting one foot in front of the other and moving, and then reassessing on an almost daily basis.
Yeah.
Am I close to what I'm trying to achieve? So, for someone who's trying to develop better communication with my wife, better communication with my employees, a very, very big part of that starts by actively listening and just making an intentional choice to, hey, whenever I'm having a conversation with my wife, whenever I'm having a conversation with Rob, whenever I'm having a conversation with any of my partners, I'm not going to sit there and try to think of the next thought. I'm just going to listen. I'm going to actively listen. And then you just have to assess every day. Every day. I think that's one of the biggest things. It's not that we don't generally wake up trying to achieve a goal. It's that we don't assess how far we've gotten on a daily basis. I want to yell less in my house. I want to repeat myself less. Am I asking myself at the end of every day, have I achieved directional accuracy? Have I done the things to allow me to yell less, repeat myself less? And how am I doing on those on a daily basis? I think there's nothing wrong with directional accuracy generally. Again, to have a goal and to strategically plot out how I'm going to get to that goal. And then every single day ask myself, am I closer or am I further away?
Sure.
Segueing into the second part, which probably you're going to ask about next. Perfectionism is kind of the dumbest thing out there. As a concept, as a thought, as a pursuit. And I'm surprised to this day at how many people I still meet that believe something like that is possible. From a Christian perspective, which is no one is perfect.
Sure.
All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. If you really want to get technical, it's just another way to say we're all broken and messed up. There's no such thing as perfection. As an outcome, there's no such thing as perfection. It's how close to the target have we gotten? Directional accuracy, right?
Sure.
Are we off by 50%? Are we off by 10%? We're always going to be off by some percent, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because the fallacy of perfectionism is it's a prison. It's actually crippling. It is incredibly crippling. You lose directional accuracy if you're trying to be perfect because you might never move forward. You can't even get started.
Yeah.
There's a really, really, really fine line between trying to put one foot in front of the other and just move forward and trying to get it perfect. You'll fall every single time. You'll never get close. It is crippling.
Yeah.
The pursuit of perfectionism is a fallacy. It'll never happen.
Yeah.
In business, in relationships, my partner is not perfect, nor will she ever be.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect, nor will I ever be.
You seem to have a certain level of conviction about this. Is that because you've tried pursuing perfection?
Yes.
Or is that something you've built in, like you just knew off the bat?
No. Tried and failed. Many projects, many ventures, many businesses, many relationships, and everything in between. Kind of being inflexible as to an outcome or how the outcome is achieved or when the outcome is achieved. Perfectionism is rigidity. Rigidity is death. It is death. Mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, financial, you name it. Mistakes are an inevitability of life. And every one of those inevitabilities is an education that you learn, not making you more perfect, making you better in every other way.
Right.
I will die not perfect. Every business I shut down or sell or transfer will never be perfect. All metrics, sales, operations, you name it. Nothing will ever be perfect. We'll hit targets. And along the way, there will be a lot of broken things. And so why I'm convicted is because sometimes a pursuit of perfection forces us to put on this show.
Yeah.
And it gets much deeper than that. I don't know how much time we have, but we don't all have it together. No one has it together. Anyone that you look at that you think has it together doesn't. They don't.
You just gotta look under the hood for a couple of minutes.
They don't. They don't. And it's endemic on social media. Anything you see and you just look at it and you're like, it's perfect. They're perfect. Their lives are perfect. Their marriages are perfect. Their businesses are perfect. False.
Yeah.
Their marriages are struggling. Their businesses are burning millions of dollars and they're losing at various times. Not all at once, I'm saying at all. But the struggle on the way to what you think is perfect is very real. They just don't post about the struggles.
Yeah.
And I hate that. I hate that. I've started dozens of business ventures and failed at dozens minus two.
Sure.
And I don't hide the struggles anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I relish them and I embrace them. And I know there's something beautiful on the other side of the struggle.
Sure.
But perfectionism is a prison.
Two things related, I think, came up when you were talking. Because the directional accuracy on paper made a lot of sense for me. But you brought up, your perspective from a Christian, from the Christian tradition. And I think, wave me off if I'm wrong, but sin can be defined as like just missing the mark.
Mm-hmm. That's precisely the definition.
And then on more of a general definition, I forget who said it, but they said if you take off on a flight and you're 1 degree off, if you travel 3,000 miles, 1 degree off, you'll end up in an entirely different place.
Not just an entirely different place. You're not talking about feet away from the original destination.
Right.
Thousands of miles.
Right.
Like, it's very important to recognize that 1 degree, you're on another continent. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess my point to that was directional accuracy was better downloaded for me once those two frames entered scene. Of like, all right, Sydney's just missing the mark, get back on track. Or if I can have the awareness or once in a while get the meta view of like my life and see where I'm 1 or 10 degrees off. The course correction is where the money is, right?
And that's why I said I think that's the biggest thing that's missing.
Yeah.
Is that reassessment.
Sure.
On a daily basis, if you recall, that's specifically what I said. It is tough to reassess in 6 months. You're going to miss a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's almost necessary. It is necessary. And there's a lot of famous monastic and ascetic practices that self-reflect daily.
Sure.
To give an account, to give an account of the day, to journal. Like, what did your day look like? What did your interactions look like? Where did you miss the mark? Yeah. It's like a constant redirect.
Right.
Like, because I guess, to put it another way, the sooner you recognize that your entire life is an active course correction,
yeah,
the sooner you will now be intentional about, all right, it's time to it's time for my daily course correct assessment.
Sure.
That's not wild at all. I mean, these planners that daily planners you can buy on Amazon, they revolve around listing out your day, what you accomplished, what you didn't accomplish.
Right.
Now it's a little bit deeper,
Yep. A little bit of rapid fire here. Just kind of see what you think about these.
Rapid fire. Okay.
What recurring challenges have you faced in your entrepreneurial journey and personal life, and how have you managed them over the years? Recurring challenges.
Different personalities.
Stemming from you? Or dealing with them?
Just my personality and a partner's personality. And just kind of one thing that I'm constantly learning is that people aren't necessarily trying to hurt you or screw you. They're just looking out for themselves. And that's okay.
Yeah.
As much as I can't stand that, because I've generally not looked out for myself.
Wait,
and that's
hold on. Put a pin in that. Why?
you know me. I live like, hey, just give, it'll come back. Just put it out there, it'll come back. You know, there's no need to, and that makes me different and probably a bigger failure than most other leaders. I'm okay with that. I'm totally fine with that. But just give. Put it out there, give. It'll come back. And if it doesn't, move on. A lot of people will disagree with me on that.
Do you think that mentality is part of your directional accuracy? Like, am I giving?
Look, I've been very blessed in my life, and I'm not Mother Teresa. I'm not a saint. But one of the things I always try to look at is did I give this person or that person what they needed?
Sure.
Sometimes what they wanted. Could I have given more? Could I have been more giving?
Yeah.
Less inflexible?
Sure.
Yeah, I think so.
How do you not prioritize? Do you have a personal system on making tough, high-pressure decisions?
I try to pray about them a lot and just kind of ask for God's wisdom. I very much believe in God.
Yep.
I don't talk to Jesus as much as I should. But high pressure, high priority, I don't even need to tell you. They're overwhelming and they're above me. Totally above and outside my pay grade. And so one of the things that I try to do is tap into that spiritual part of it.
Sure.
Because I definitely believe in prayer. I believe God answers prayers. I've seen it in my life. That's what I try to start with. As the years have gone by, 15 years ago, I probably would do a lot less of that and a lot more of my own internal conversation.
Sure.
Now I ask a lot of people. Now I'm just like, hey, I just pick up the phone and I talk to people that I know, I respect, that I know love me, whose only skin in the game is me. One way or another, whether I go this way or that way, they just want to see me thrive and be okay.
Sure.
No financial gain, and I'll ask them, what do you think I should do about this? What do you think I should do about this? And that's okay. I think that's where a lot of people miss the mark these days, where they're not getting wise, high integrity counsel from people. And then you have the opposite, of course, where you're getting every opinion under the sun from very bad perspectives.
Sure.
And that's going to muddy the water.
Is that circle pretty small? 2 or 3 people, 5 people?
Yeah.
How do you forecast and get ahead of competitive markets? Like, do you look at what's happening in the next year or 5 years and make judgments, implement strategies? Do you do much of that?
Yeah. Not probably as much as I should.
Yeah.
But there's a really, really fine line between, it's October 18th. I have this thing with my managers where they all know we start our New Year's resolutions in October.
Okay.
You're not going to start a New Year's resolution 2 days before New Year's and have any hope of, no. It's a long-term play. I try to focus less on the competitive part.
Sure.
And just focus internally on what our year looked like and what we could have done better. Yeah.
What does the public eye not understand or see about living life as a CEO?
They see a lot of glitz and glamour, which is a completely wrong perception. There's very little glitz. There's no glamour. I'm talking about 99% of CEOs.
Sure.
Even all 500 Fortune 500 companies, the entire NASDAQ, the Dow Jones, those hundreds of thousands of companies are 1% still. Their CEO is making gazillions of dollars in the private jets. Those are few and far between. Like the Main Street CEO, it's not glitz and glamour. And it's probably not for those people either. I'm just saying that's where you see the glitz and glamour. Little or none, and it's very lonely. It is very lonely. I don't think, the more I understand about how lonely it is, because I didn't know that 10 years ago.
Sure.
And that doesn't mean I don't have people by my side. That's not at all what it means. It's just the more I understand how much of a toll it takes, the more I recognize how truly lonely it is.
Someone out there watching or listening or wanting to be an entrepreneur and or CEO, it's like, dude, you got people all around you, hundreds of employees, managing partners, family. How are you lonely?
At any one moment in time, I'm responsible for 600 or 700 people, and whether or not they get their paychecks, whether or not their kids eat, go to school, that's tough. I don't know if it's ever going to get easier. It's a true burden, one that I'm fine with. You know, we just spoke about in our sales meeting this morning. My sales floor has collectively purchased 6 engagement rings in the last 5 months. Incredibly fulfilling to watch people with no education, no discernible skills, you know, coming in with no experience and changing their lives and buying houses, and incredibly fulfilling. It's the most fulfilling. And we're hugging each other and everyone's high-fiving. It's great. I love it. It's beautiful. Their hard work plus the opportunity and the guidance I gave equals that. I'm not responsible for it, but I had a part in it. All of that being said, it's still very lonely. They're not mutually exclusive at all. That burden rests on my shoulders and my shoulders alone. My wife can't share it. My executive suite cannot share it, though they try.
Yeah.
I have a great support system, but it's lonely.
Well, from boy to boy, I've, past a year now. Yeah, about a year we've been pretty close, and watching you carry that burden's been inspiring. I've seen ups and downs. You've shared a lot with me, and your ability, your resilience is not lost on me. So thank you for leading in that way. You're inspiring more than you know.
If that's a fruit of all this, that's great. That's great.
Closing quote: bad days are part of a good life. Good moments are part of a difficult season.
I love everything about that.
I think you're a walking billboard of that quote.
I don't,
an applied version of that quote.
I hope that's what people see, because it's what I preach. You know, I was watching a video the other day, and it was Chris Paul. It was like a TikTok video, and I love Chris Paul anyway, but he said something like, our coach always used to tell us, everything you ever wanted is on the other side of hard. The good and the bad, all of it, so I echo that.
Love you, bro. Thank you.
Love you, man. Appreciate you.